All right, we are live and on air. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Kickoff Labs marketing chat. I am Josh Legard, co-founder of Kickoff Labs. Before we get into today's topic, how Great Little Place secured 300,000 Facebook fans, 50,000 email subscribers, and crowdfunding for their business, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. If that's the chat you came for, you're in the right place. If you're looking for something else, then now's the time to leave. Our goal at Kickoff Labs is to provide you with the tools for quick and easy lead generation. Our opt-in forms and landing pages help you create smarter launch, contests, ebook download, and even event-focused campaigns, like today's event. The sign-up form for this event, the landing page to view the event, is all running on top of Kickoff Labs. So go ahead, give us a try after the webinar. Don't do it during the webinar. We'd love your full attention. And get started on your path to 50 to 100,000 emails. The reason we do these chats live is for the interactivity. So I want people all to be signed into the chat. Feel free to introduce yourselves to the people in the chat. We'll do some call-outs during the event. And as topics come up, please feel free to post your questions. We asked for questions in advance, so we are going to cover just about all of those questions, but I'm sure there'll be time for questions from the audience. And what we're going to be doing is we'll pause regularly to look for live questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. So if you haven't already, go ahead in the chat and introduce yourself and start thinking about questions you have about growing your audience. The way this is going to work, I'm going to introduce our guest, and we're going to walk through his story and the story of his company in a Q&A style. And like I said, I've got a set of questions you guys all submitted in advance to help me do that, and I've got some. I'm sure there'll be some questions along the way. All right, that was 3 minutes. I can see some more people are jumping on, so we're just going to get started. Super excited to learn more from today's guest, a Kickoff Labs customer, Rossa Shanks, and his co-founder, Rich, in the last few years secured 300,000 Facebook fans, 45,000 Twitter followers. They crowdfunded their business. Most recently, they've collected an additional 50,000. Literally just before this call, we heard they crossed the line over to 50,000  email subscribers on their most recent campaign for the Great Little Place app through Kickoff Labs. And we'll get into what the company is and the app down the line. I'm going to share some slides, and first we're going to talk to Rossa a bit. So let me go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see. All right, like I said, this is the name of the business, the name of the presentation. I'm going to skip that since I've already said it several times. But we're going to talk to Rossa today. So Rossa, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So your bio, and I can read it. You guys founded Great Little Place in 2010. You started to think about the app, GLP app, in 2014. People can read the bio, but I'd love to go backwards first before we talk about Great Little Place. What's your background? Where did you come from? You know, what got you to the start of Great Little Place?
So I started my career in advertising. So I worked at a couple of different ad agencies. The first was AMV BBDO. I believe BBDO. There's some BBDOs in America as well. And then I went to work at Grey London. I think there's also Grey New York. So yeah, I cut my teeth in advertising, which was a great kind of grounding for, I think, building a business, because you learn about how to build a brand, what's the, an incredible value proposition, how to reach an audience and engage an audience. So from a kind of marketing point of view, it's kind of perfect. And that's where I met my co-founder, Rich Brown, as well. We weren't at the same ad agency, but we met on a course and then started talking about this idea. And then we kind of basically started the idea in our spare time. It was kind of a passion project. We really enjoyed finding kind of quirky, off the beaten track places, and yeah, just started talking about the idea. And before, I guess, we went full time in it, I ended up was head of marketing at the Sun newspaper, which is I think the biggest newspaper here in the UK. and Rich left advertising as well and moved down more of a kind of product management route and got into kind of user experience and that sort of stuff.
Great. So it says, I mean, it's clear that you guys are trying to do something different than, let's say, a Yelp or one of the more traditional, travel, blanking. There's a couple more big ones like Yelp out there.
Foursquare, Time Out, all those guys, yeah.
Yeah, and so tell me a little bit more about what sets you guys apart. Like what makes it different, your idea different than what other companies are doing.
Sure, I think it's a few things. I guess the first comes from what the value proposition is. So our idea was really simple, which is everyone loves great little places. The kind of places you tell a story about, places of personality. The trick is they're really hard to find, and it's amazing when you stumble across one, but they're kind of few and far between. There's obviously a lot of information out there in terms of finding them, but it's a bit of a deluge. So we had an idea which was really simple, which is everyone knows at least one great little place. So if we can get everyone in the world to say, I know this great little place, fill in the end of that sentence and share them, amazing discoveries with everyone else, then we might just create the ultimate list. So I think that's where the differentiation starts. So we never sought out to have an app which was just another, city guide, I guess, with places on there and everywhere and anywhere, and you differentiate those places by star ratings. Ours is much more of a ours is much more of a binary platform whereby it's either somewhere's great or it's not good enough. And so if it's not good enough, it's not on the platform. So therefore, when you take that model, you don't need ratings. And I think to some extent, ratings actually take away from trust versus actually adding the trust. So that's the first thing. So only great little places. The second is all personally recommended. So we don't just add business on there kind of randomly. They all come from a personal recommendation that's written by a user. And then the best bit is that the platform is then self-curating because we don't get involved editorially. The community decides what stays and what goes. So it's really meritocratic. It's really democratic. We might have someone who uses the app in London, or maybe someone in New York, and they're traveling in Mexico, let's say, and they might find somewhere in a random little village and add it. So it's very much like everyone's little black book of places woven together.
I think what's impressive to me about that, and what I'm going to get into next, is that they're really strong about the curation process, and they say it's self-curated. You can't just go and submit your local Applebee's and have that voted up by the rest of the people there, because it's just not going to happen, because the rest of the crowd that they have is going to vote Applebee's right off the list of menus. Talk about so I got the idea, we get the curation. Talk about that initial organic growth. So you guys actually started this, when you had the idea, you guys started in 2010. What was the first version like? What was the first version of your idea? How did that work?
Yeah, sure. So I guess a lot of people in the entrepreneurial world know about MVPs now, so minimal viable products. For us, that wasn't something that was widespread, or certainly not talked about back in 2010, but we instinctively thought to ourselves, look, we're restricted because we don't have loads of money, we're not developers ourselves, but we want to get this idea out there and test it and see if people like it and it resonates with people. So we had two kind of things we needed to prove in order to take the idea forward. The first was, does anyone care about this idea other than us? And how many people do? And secondly, would people share their favorite places, or would they like to keep those things close to their chest and keep them secret? So there were two things that we needed to do. So we decided that actually the perfect platform to test the idea was Facebook, an inherently social platform where people can join in on a page and give recommendations, that sort of stuff. So we set a page which you've put up on the screen now called I Know This Great Little Place in London. And that was designed, or let's say the name of it was intentional in the sense that we thought if you saw that name in your feed, in your news feed, and you saw a few of your friends had liked it, there'd be a bit of social proof, but also that name is kind of curious and whets your appetite and picks your interest, and we thought people would click it and click through. So luckily our hypothesis was right, or our gut instinct was right, and we invited all our friends in advertising. On the first day, badgered everyone that we knew to sign up, because we knew that to trigger a viral effect, you need to get as many people together to do something, you know, in a short period of time. And then luckily within 2 weeks it had grown to 40,000 likes. And
cool. So tell me about the, you know, how you got to the first 1,000 fans. Did you have any relationships with kind of key influencers in the market? You mentioned your friends in advertising. Were they pivotal in getting the first 1,000 to 40,000 fans?
I mean, absolutely. So if you think about what might trigger a viral effect, the key thing always is the first group of people knowing each other, or being self-referencing, if you like, to use a term from the book Crossing the Chasm. That's really important. So if they can't talk to each other, or they don't know each other, it's a lot harder for that idea to spread. But if you are within a closed community, whether that's in, you know, on a university campus, or that's in a certain industry like advertising, that's critical. So we invited literally, you know, all our friends. A lot of them were obviously in advertising, so there's a lot of overlapping friendship groups, which meant that even though there were only, let's say, 300 in the first day, and it got to 1,000 the second day, actually, in London anyway, it's a small community, so kind of everyone knows each other. So if you're on Facebook, you'd suddenly see, oh, 20 of your friends from advertising have liked this page, and then that was enough of a kind of group of people to start the fire. It's like the kindling before the fire happened, if that makes sense.
So the initial idea goes viral. You get to 40,000 Facebook fans. This is an example of one of their posts they did once they started having a following. And I love, one of the things I like about it that I think works really well for them. And you can see, like you said, the title was very intentional, saying, "I know this great little place in London." And I'm sure that got people to read the rest of the posts they were doing, because the title was very intentional and thought out in terms of getting people, piquing their curiosity. The other thing about it that we see with our customers that works really well is that they're being very specific in the early days. It says, "I know this great little place." So it's not just any place; it's a great little place. But they're also specific about saying London. So they're like very much targeting while London is a large community, they weren't saying worldwide we're going to help you find the best little places. They're saying in London, we are going to help you find the best little place there. And I think that contributed a lot to their growth, because I see it work well. That technique worked well for other people. Is that even if your ultimate plan is to grow beyond one city where you're launching and to go beyond it, to start and be very focused and say, we're going to nail this within the London community, is a very powerful way, because it engages people and says, oh, it makes them say, this is for me because I live in London and I like great little places, as opposed to just saying, you know, we're going to help you find a great little place anywhere.
Sorry, Josh, I'm back. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I think you were picking up on the fact that we made basically local pages for each city.
Yes.
And that was crucial, because if we'd have just called it, oh, I know this great old place, no one would have joined it, because there's no relevancy to you. So whilst there was a bit of a hassle, we did open lots and lots of pages for different cities, and the way we did that was whoever had reached out to us and said, hey, this for Toronto, I'd like it for Amsterdam, we basically made them the admin or editor of that community so that they could manage it locally. And because people really cared about the idea, you know, we had very much a mission-led idea, which is we're going to protect all these labors of love, all these independent venues from the kind of, you know, the big chains, etc. People really got on board with that. And fell in love with the idea, so they were, you know, willing to volunteer their time. So it really, I guess, caught the imagination. To answer your question before I cut out, you said, what did we do after we got the initial traction? So we obviously maintained the communities, you know, gave them relevant content that they love. You've got one there, one recently, where, you know, you can just see the interaction with into something that they enjoy doing and etc. So it just worked well within the book, where people are talking about their social lives. we did to really test whether we had an idea that resonated was we decided to ask our audience for money, basically, for free money, because we wanted to build a website, and we couldn't afford to do it at the time. We can develop ourselves. So there's the crowdfunding site. So raised over £10,000 from them, which was our target, and that allowed us to build greatlittleplace.com, which was, again, just another way of us proving that the idea worked. And I guess the main hypothesis we needed to prove there was, will people add places on our own platform, not just on Facebook? And they did in the thousands. So that, again, was a big tick box for us. But I guess in the back of our minds, we always knew that we wanted to go to mobile, and that was going to be the way forward.
Cool. Did you guys ever use? It was a question from our audience. Did you guys ever use ads, Facebook advertising, to drive any of the growth?
No, not any of our organic growth on the pages. I think when we launched, it was a lot easier to go viral, and Facebook was a lot more generous with kind of impressions that they allowed you to have, as it were. We've recently turned to advertising to drive people to our pre-sign-up page, which I guess is what today's chat's about. So we have been doing that, but that's been working for us to great effect. And one of the kind of byproducts of doing advertising to our to glpapp.com, which is where we've got our Kickoff Labs page. The ironic byproduct of that is we've had, I think, another 40,000 likes in the last week, because people have seen ads that they've liked. They're literally tagging themselves in the ads, which is quite funny. So yeah, that's working really well.
So I want to stay on the crowdfunding for a second, because we had a lot of questions about that, and we have a lot of people that want to run successful crowdfunding campaigns. Before we get into the most recent email list, how did you drive? Did you just throw up this page and you had 100,000 or 200,000 followers on social media, and just ask them to go check out the page and back you?
Yeah, I think the trick with crowdfunding is it's definitely not easy. And we weren't raising lots of money, but what we were doing was essentially asking for free money, because our prizes were pretty weak in retrospect.
What were they?
I mean, the top prize, I think, was we'll get you, I think I can't remember what the value was, but maybe it was if you put in 500 quid or 150 quid, I can't remember pounds, that is, sterling, we'll sort you out a trip to a great little place somewhere, because we've got relationships with the venues and we can get kind of free stuff. To very basic stuff like put in a tenner, I think, or 20, and you'll be invited to our launch party, that sort of stuff. So they weren't, it wasn't like we had a product. It wasn't like we were selling some new kind of tech product that we could give away like a discounted value on. It was very much asking for support just for the sake of the idea. And you can see all the names there you put up on the screen of all the people that supported us. There was over 300 people, I think, chipped in. Just small amounts, but some people put in quite a lot. One person put in £500, and we just literally didn't know who they were. I think the trick with crowdfunding is you've got to do it. You've got to be prepared. So if you need your own network, I think, to a certain degree, and you need to ask the network before you do it, would they be willing to pledge money if you did it? So you almost get pre-pledges and get people warmed up to the idea before actually launching your campaign. And I would also give yourself, because you can set the time limit by which you raise the money, I would also give yourself as much time as possible. I would do the maximum, not the minimum. We actually did a quite short time period. I think it was 45 days, and we could have done with. It got a bit hectic near the end where we thought we might not make it, but you've got to give yourself enough time. But I think good prizes is obviously always good if you've got something. If you've got a product that you can actually offer a discounted price on, that's obviously a good place to start.
Cool. I love the idea. I mean, it's something that a lot of people forget to do, is just saying thank you. And I mean, that page that's up there is just a great way to say thank you to the audience of the people who are helping, who are funding at that point, who are maybe contributing pieces of what you were doing. So let's go ahead now and let's talk about the app and the landing page. So you said you always wanted to get into mobile. You
Yeah.
already had an audience, like a decent audience. So what made you say, you know what, we're going to do this campaign to collect, your goal, I think you've told me, is 100,000 email addresses
Yeah.
through the campaign. So what made you say, you know what, now we're going to go collect 100,000 email addresses as part of this app launch?
I guess it's simple. The answer to that's simple, which is, I think to a certain degree, the anticipation of something can really contribute to the excitement of it. So if we'd have just released our app into the wild, I guess people, responded well and all the rest of it. But I think it's much easier to sell the promise of something before you launch it. And obviously, with something like an app, there's various things you need to consider, which is, okay, if we can build up an audience before we launch, so that on day one when we launch, there's a ton of people downloading the app, that also helps you from a distribution point of view, because you run up the ranks in the App Store. So, to get to #1 in any category on a single day, you probably need, in the UK anyway, it's more in the States, I imagine, you need about 15,000 downloads. In the States, I imagine it's probably 50 to 100,000, maybe. I don't. But those things help then get organic users that you've had giving you exposure or whatever you're in. So that's something we want to launch with a big bang, that organic wave. And I think, it's easy to, when something's not launched, early adopters get excited, I think, and also, when you're trying to sign people up, the promise of something's more exciting than the reality often. Obviously, we're going to make ours as good as it can be, but that's the psychological truth about it, I think. And also, I think people want to feel like they're cutting edge, and they're gonna be the first to trial something, and that's exciting, and be the first in the know. And they want something they can't have. So I think you can capitalize on a lot of psychological hooks there that are just part of our human makeup, I think.
So I want to talk about a couple of the psychological hooks that you're leveraging on the page here. So one of the things that I noticed right away is that you've got this text above the email box that says "Become founding member." I guess now I'd say 50,000. When we took the screenshot, it was 22. Become founding member. So what do you think the impact of that is right above the email list?
So we spent a lot of time reading books on virality, on social behavior, how you engender kind of viral effects, I guess, and how you make something contagious. So everything on the page was deliberate for us. It wasn't that we just kind of mocked something up, just got it out there. Single thing is considered, and we've made changes to that page every week since it launched, and you guys gave us some useful feedback, and we've made even more changes. But I'll talk you through it. So the founding member thing, there's a concept known as social proof, if anyone's familiar with that, and all that means is we kind of very much follow a herd behavior a lot of the time. So I'll give you an analogy. If you pass a restaurant or two restaurants, and on one side a restaurant is full, and on the other side of the street a restaurant's completely empty, we're kind of risk averse as human beings, and we assume that the one that's full is full because of merit, because it's got better food or whatever the case may be. But it might be that actually the other restaurant is exceptionally good. It's just no one was brave enough to be the first person to walk in there. So social proof is really important, because you're much more likely to go to the restaurant that's full than it's empty, and the same principle applies here, which is if you can see a lot of people have signed up to something and it's popular, that kind of A, gives it an endorsement, B, means that you're not wrong for thinking that this is a good idea to sign up to, and C, it also helps engender, I think, a fear of missing out. So you want to be part of that community, you want to be part of the in crowd, and that's why we use language on a later iteration of this page like get early access, because that taps into first know, founding member, make it feel like a club, and make them feel important. Very much display the total figure, because that's really important, because once you get to a certain amount, it's just almost a tipping point, and it helps with your conversions when people land on the page. We also deliberately made the page sparse of lots of different, I guess, social buttons. So We've also got different versions for different cities. So this page you're displaying here is a generic one, but for our London iteration, we've got a lot of fans in London. We've got 320,000 fans now. So that was also another bit of social proof. But for us, the purpose of the page isn't to get more likes, or to get a bit more followers on Pinterest or all those sort of things, or Twitter. So we removed all those buttons, so there was no other real distraction apart from just putting in your email.
And I love that, because that's the opposite of what I see a lot of people do. A lot of people come to us and they say, well, I want to add my Pinterest and my Instagram and my Twitter, and I want to add all of these things, and I want this parallax scrolling effect on the page. And like, you guys went, you boiled it down to like the simplest thing you could get that gets people to convert, and I love that you guys did that. The other thing about this this page, which struck me, and that's what I was mentioning earlier, is that there's no slideshows, there's no scrolling, there's not 100 bits of feature information on the page about what it is, but it talks about their mission. And it says, introducing the Last City Guide. We're creating a magical app to help you find the greatest little places around the world, from quirky bars to weird, wonderful restaurants. We promise to make it the last city guide you'll ever need, so come on board. You'll notice it doesn't talk about features. It doesn't talk about features of the app. It doesn't talk about what it'll do. It doesn't talk about how specifically it helps you. It talks about why they exist. And that's probably the most challenging copy for people to write in general, is thinking about the why on the page, like why you should become a member. And some people don't get to the point where they talk about what the app is effectively, but I think the reality is, if you spend so much time focusing on sharing the what of a coming soon application, that you'll lose track of the why. And the why is, I think, what's really effective on this page at getting people to convert, because they're presenting their mission, and they're looking for people who are really want to be part of that mission of why Great Little Place exists. So that was my last 2 cents on the page.
Were you talking about Simon Sinek there? I just heard. Is that right?
Yeah, I was in a roundabout way. I was explaining how your landing page is. You don't spend a lot of time. You hardly mention anything about the app other than showing that it is an app on a phone. You're talking about the why, and so I imagine that would be one of your book recommendations. Would be this Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why.
100%. I mean, we talk about that a lot, and so many. Whenever I hear startups pitching their ideas, they always start with what it is, sort of thing, and you lose people. I guess you've got to make it relevant to them. And yeah, Start With Why is a great book. If you don't fancy reading the whole thing, he's got a TED Talk that sums it up in 5 minutes. It's well worth reading. Yeah, the other books I'd recommend are, there's a book called Contagious, by, I think, a guy, I'm just looking it up now, a guy called Jonah, I think his name is, Jonah something. Contagious is a very good book. It kind of just runs through all the different ways in which you can make an idea spread. And it talks from things like making something very visible so other people can talk about it. So, like, I know it's gone badly since, but the Lance Armstrong Yellow Live Strong band was contagious because so many people saw it and it was a talking point. It's a great book. I'm just going to tell you the author now. Yeah, Jonah Berger. That's a great book. There's a book called The Viral Loop as well, which is a good book. I think I probably prefer Contagious, but it's definitely a good book. That's by a guy called Adam Pennenberg. Yeah, they're kind of two books that are very good. Andrew Chen did another kind of, it was more like a blog put into a book, which is pretty good, called The Viral Startup. But yeah, I think Contagious is relevant to whatever business, because it's not just about, like, say, tech startups. It's just the principles of how to spread an idea.
Cool. And let's I've got a couple slides where we talk about the results. And so, you guys are, I'm grateful you guys are happy to share some of the numbers here with us. But and so this is straight off of your dashboard, and it shows, from January, your conversion rate through recently. what kind of expectations did you have going into this? Were you hoping for, a 10, 20, 40% conversion rate? What kind of expectations or goals did you guys set?
Yeah, I mean it's really hard with these things because I think there's an expectation as an entrepreneur that when you finally get someone on your platform, they will of course do whatever you want them to do, and of course they'll be dying to sign up for this amazing thing that you've created. But of course, no one ever gets 100% conversion. It just doesn't happen because someone could go on a page and then gets distracted at work and then forgets about what they were doing and then goes off. It's impossible to get everyone. I think for us, I think we knew it was going to be under 50% because obviously 50% would be ridiculously high. We also realize, that not everyone is on iPhones. There's a lot of Android users and there's Windows users as well, etc. So unfortunately for us, we were only able to develop iPhone first, and we will move to Android and other platforms. So you're naturally going to get a drop off there of Android users who are kind of like, well, this doesn't look like it's for me. And then not everyone gets excited about the idea. But I mean, I think when we first started, the conversion rates were like 27%, around about that. And my goal was to get that up to over 30%. So I'm happy to say, as you see there, it's just under 32 over the whole period. And I think that has come from making those little tweaks on the page from different people's opinions, and Kickoff Labs gave us some great advice as well, which we made some fundamental changes, which instantly we've seen the last week actually the conversion rate's more like 34%, which has dragged up the whole average to 31.9. So I think the trick there is whenever your page is live, never think it's done. It can always be improved. And of course, we haven't done this, and we should have done, but A/B testing different things, even like the copy on a button. We started off with notify me, and we've changed it to become member, just because it feels more exclusive. That was a suggestion from Kickoff Labs, so that we implemented. So all those things are interesting to look at.
So how did you guys build the page? There's a question from the chat that came in. So what did you guys use to build it?
We got our web developer to do it. I mean, I think it's just a simple, it's just simple HTML and CSS really. There's nothing fancy there. It's a pretty simple page. It's responsive as well. I think that's really important, especially for us. We're a mobile app, and all the advertising we've done to that page is to mobile devices. So you don't think for a second that it's done when you're looking at a desktop version. You're approving it. Check it on your phone, because over 50% of people will check the page from their phone without a doubt. So that's really important that it's responsive.
Yeah, and you guys just used our Anyform widget to plug into your custom page.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, that's why we developed it. Is we knew that everybody had a unique vision, and we could have 1,000 templates in a marketplace, and people would not, people would still want to do something on their own to implement it. And so that's why we did that.
Yeah.
Cool. And then kind of going into the next set of numbers, if you look at the over time the leads generated, there's a couple of 3 distinct spikes in here with the leads that come in. Can you talk about what happened at these these dates, the January, February, and then I guess later in March?
Sure. Pretty simple really. So when that first initial spike, kind of mid-January or whenever that was, 10th of Jan, that was purely our organic social media. So we posted it to 3 of our city pages. All of them were in the UK. We posted it to London, Glasgow, and Edinburgh, and that's why we saw good numbers then, all organic numbers, and we were tweeting about it and things like that, although Twitter doesn't tend to drive huge traffic. So that happened, and then you can see it kind of, that organic curve goes down, as people get bored of being pestered to sign up on your page. And then I think basically you'll start to see there was a mini spike in February, kind of twice there. We started experimenting with using adverts to drive to the page, because we were assuming that actually the cost of signing up someone before the app launches is going to be a lot cheaper than once we've launched, because it's just, as I mentioned earlier, it's a whole other ball game when something is already out there and you feel like you're being advertised to because you're saying download me now, and it feels a bit kind of hard sell. I think when you're promoting something before it's actually launched, it can be much more engaging a lot of the time. So we started experimenting with some adverts, and they worked okay. And this is all on Facebook. We did actually try Twitter as well, but we found Twitter wasn't as effective for us. And then we kind of put very low effort, I think, into it sort of mid-February onwards, because we've been really super busy actually making the app and getting it ready. And then what's happened in the last week is we feel like we've really cracked a formula that works on Facebook for the ads. We're using a new format that Facebook's rolled out called a multi-product ad that's working really well for us. And I think we've just got a better call to, not even call to action. They don't even really feel like ads. I mean, one of them just says, it says it comes from us. It's I know this great little place in London, and it just says London has many secrets. We have the key, and then a range of images of just amazing places, whether it's like a cocktail bar or a romantic restaurant. And the hilarious thing is that people just have been tagging themselves in the ads, going, "Hey, we must go here. Sarah, take me here," and things like that, and tons of likes. And again, that social proof kicks in, because as soon as an advert starts getting comments and likes and shares, other people think, "Oh, this is okay. This thing must be good. Maybe I'm missing out here. I'll get involved." So they've been incredibly effective for us over the last week, and I think we've driven just in 1 week alone 30,000 signups.
Cool. That's that's pretty amazing to get the 30,000 just in the one last week. And so, talk a little bit more that the ads. It sounds like one of your techniques in the ads is that you're making something that's goal is to feel like it's at home in the Facebook feed. That it's not something that's like, "Hey, come sign up for me." You're making something that's like tries to pique somebody's interest in the feed. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think it almost feels like it's not an ad. So we've deliberately not used any of Facebook's kind of traditional buttons that you can add. So Facebook has buttons like shop now, download now, sign up now. We deliberately decided not to use them because we thought it would be more natural if we did a soft sell. So there's no in the copy of in the text of the ad, we're not saying download our app now, sign up now. We're just creating intrigue. The copy is stuff like, like I said, London has many secrets. We have the key. So we're being quite enigmatic. And then other ones are a little bit more overt. So one is our app is going to be your, ultimate little black book of places. And then another one like, find places you never knew existed. And then a range of beautiful imagery. So I think the best thing that on Facebook is to fit in with the community, don't oversell, use amazing imagery because it's a visual platform, and I think tone of voice is important as well. So for us, a good tone of voice is making something feel cool and not exclusive because it's inclusive as well, but just makes everyone feel like they're an insider if they get on board.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly showing that's where your leads are coming from. Of the nearly, of the 50,000, you're dealing with, more than 80% of them coming from Facebook. So it certainly is a working strategy for you. Would you be willing to, as part of the recap, send out some screenshots of some of the ads you're running in Facebook?
Yeah, sure.
Were really effective. I think that would be really helpful to our audience to be able to share and say, hey, these are some ads that worked, and here's why they worked.
Yeah. I can do that. We'll just email them to you?
Yeah, if you just email them to us afterwards, we'll include them in the recap and the posts that we do about this.
Sure.
So let's talk about the future. So you specifically quit your job about 15 months ago.
Yeah.
So that must mean you're feeling fairly confident about the growth in the business model, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've cracked a great product. It actually looks a lot different to the one you've got there. We've improved the design immensely, and I think the great thing is most people, the cost of, certainly from a technology point of view, if you're in a tech startup, the cost of producing products now is diminished incredibly. it's not free to make a digital product, but it's a lot cheaper than it used to be. There's a lot of platforms that help you develop and all those sort of things, and a lot of the code that's already been written that you can reuse and things like that. So the trick really with all these things that defines success is actually the marketing of them, I think. Can you get traction for it? Because everyone can build a product, but not everyone can find a market for that product. And I think the thing that's really encouraging for us is that people have rallied around the idea in social media. We get tons of lovely emails from people randomly just saying, love what you guys are doing, you know, wish you all the best. And I think it's those sort of things that you kind of make you think, yeah, we're onto something. And what's really been great is these sign-ups on the Kickoff Labs page. And if that gets to 100,000 before we launch or more, if we dream a little bigger, then I think we're going to be off to a really, you know, great start. You know, when I look at other big companies that have gone on to be, you know, hugely successful, you know, most of them, you know, didn't even start with the numbers that we're starting with pre-launch. So that's given us a lot of confidence in what we're doing. But yeah, it always remains to be seen. I think the trick for us, you know, I think we'll be okay from an acquisition point of view. The question is, as always with it, especially a mobile app product, is whether people stick around and whether you retain them. Because a lot of apps kind of get downloaded, used once, and then no one ever comes back. So
a couple questions that came up, which I think are going to go a little bit backwards from the chat. But where are you sourcing the images? There's some people who've been fans of your page, and they love the images coming across the page. How are you sourcing the photos?
You mean just for when we post on Facebook?
Both for posting on Facebook and then for the
ad. Two different things. So for posting on Facebook, I mean, a lot of venues have their own photography, so we just ask them. And we also know quite a few photographers who take amazing pictures of London and other places around the world. And you know, they love what we're doing and said, you know, we can use their photography as long as we credit them. So that's what we do there. In terms of the app, so the way the app will work going forward is it's all people's recommendations, right? The initial content is recommendations we've taken from our Facebook pages around the world, so that, you know, when you come to the app, it's useful. There's content there for everyone to see. But very much the engine of growth for that content is people adding their own. So what happens is we have a system for that, whereby when someone adds something, we have a team of people that go out to the venues, or not go out to the venues, you know, contact the venues or work with them and get them from their websites and that sort of stuff, so that the app is full of beautiful imagery. Because I think one thing we realized very early on was a picture really does tell 1,000 stories, and if you've got a great image of a venue, an image tells you as much as a long review, if not more, about whether it's going to be something you'll like or enjoy, or you know, think looks cool. So imagery is really paramount for us.
Cool. One other question that came up is, aside from the crowdfunding, have you guys taken, I don't know if you want to discuss it, but have you guys taken any other sources of funding?
Yeah, so we raised an angel round last July, a seed round. And what we're aiming to do this year, if we hit the numbers that we want to hit, is we want to raise a Series A round this year, which will, you know, be significant, I guess.
And how many people are working with you guys now?
So we've got in the office a team of 4. We're hiring 3 more as we speak. We're hiring 3 developers at the moment. So there'll be 7 very shortly. And I think, you know, if we take on the Series A, that team will probably grow to, you know, 20 or so, and we'll probably open an office in the US, I imagine.
That's amazing. So it's great to hear kind of success. I think what's interesting, and somebody pointed it out, is and the whole time one of the themes to me reading, you know, listening, reading up beforehand about what you guys were doing is that you guys are really harvesting the power of an engaged audience with a mission. Like, you know, you have a really clearly defined why, you're giving people a mission to kind of find these places, and you're getting them engaged in your story, in why, and helping them. I mean, it's what they want, and it's a problem that they want to have solved, but it's amazing to me to see how powerful that can be in action. And we had somebody in the chat who said they you know, funny enough, he liked the page, one of their pages ages ago, hadn't used the platform or the app yet, but thought that their feed on Facebook was the best platform for them to discover things. So what I took away from that is it's really interesting that you've got this multi-layer audience where you've got some people that may just engage with you and follow you on Facebook. You've got some people that are going actively to the website, and you've got an audience that's going to be participating in the app and seeding all the content and participating through the app at the highly engaged side of things. And I think you guys have done an excellent job, it seems, in providing content for each of those different levels, and it seems like that's intentional. Am I right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, community is everything for us. The idea is about getting everyone's recommendations. So you've really got to look after the community, and that isn't easy. But it does mean you've got to respond to every email that comes in, because those people, every person you touch, they're probably gonna, tell 20 people about you if they love what you're doing, and I think. It's sometimes a deluge of information and connections that you get when you're on multiple social platforms. For example, if you're on, Pinterest, Twitter, whatever you might be on, it can be a deluge, but it does, I think, pay dividends if you do everything right by the community. You keep them involved. I mean, one example is we have a private group of about 500 people that we've a private community for GLP that we've cultivated to keep them involved with the app development, to get their advice and feedback. So, whether it's, saying, okay, do you like these designs? Do you like the color? We got them involved with our rebrand. We had, 400 people voting in a Survey Monkey about which colors and which, brand and icon they liked and preferred. I think people really respect that openness and that engagement. And I think the trick with social media is just to be yourself and open and keep people involved. Don't think of yourself as a company. Everyone knows that there's a person writing those things. So I think you can be normal and natural.
So, I want to be respectful of your time, so there's only a couple minutes left, but is there anything that you would have expected, a question about or something we didn't talk about that you feel like the audience missed out on?
So I'm going to apologize as well because I haven't actually been able to view the chat. For some reason, it didn't load for me. So I apologize if people are asking questions that I haven't been able to answer. But
I've woven them in, so you haven't missed any of the questions. I'm curious if there's anything that we haven't talked about that you've found.
One thing I'd like to maybe elaborate on a little bit that maybe can be more of a takeaway for other people, because I sort of feel like in some ways, we've been lucky enough to have the traction, in social media and other things. But in other ways, I guess of all the kind of services and products, our one in particular, which is about going out and your social life, fits in particularly well with, especially Facebook, where it's more personal connections, etc. I think, and you talked about the mission as well. I think the thing is, it might seem like there's not a lot to learn from that, because if you've got, I don't know, I'm going to give an example of something other people might consider dry. If you've got a company that is, a financial services company or something, or you've got an expenses app that you've developed, to a lot of people that might seem a bit boring or whatever, and it might feel hard to figure out how you might engage people in social media if you've got something that on the surface might appear a bit boring. But I think the trick with social media is to either make something entertaining or make it useful, and I think a lot of products can still provide a lot of utility. So back to the mission point and the Simon Sinek thing, if you start with why, if I was developing, let's say, as an example, let's take the expenses app. If I was developing an app over here called finance app, and another one called, let's call it the reassurance app. One company might describe their product like this. If I'm the finance app, I might go, we help you log all your expenses and your finances so it's all in one place and really convenient, for example. Whereas the other app might be more like, we understand how stressful it is when finances get out of control, and we think everyone should be financially literate, because if you are, then you'll be stress-free and live a better life and be able to invest in the things you want to. We just happen to make an expenses app that's really simple to use. So that's like an example of thinking about what your why is, and then if you were to take that through to social media, you've got your social strategy right there, which is helping people become financially literate, and giving them advice, tips, things like that. Does that make sense? I've kind of gone on a long-winded speech about that, but what I wanted to communicate was you can find a mission in almost anything, and even if it feels like you've got a product that people might not naturally get behind, if you can tap into a human truth or a human behavior or something, you can leverage that, and I think still build a community that's engaged.
No, that makes total sense, and it's a great thing to bring up and remind people of. Another question that came up was, in launching or growing your business, what was something that you were wrong about or thought was correct that turned out to be false in the last couple of years?
That's a very good question. We're definitely not always right. I think if anything, we probably should have gone to mobile quicker. So it's not necessary. So I think we probably spent too long with our website when it was clear to us that, if you looked at the stats and most of our traffic was mobile, from mobile, alarm bells really should have been ringing in our ears to say it's time to develop the other platform instead of continuing on. So I think business is not necessarily about making wrong decisions, because every decision has its permutations, and I don't think we've made anything catastrophically wrong, but what I would say is we could probably have made decisions a lot quicker, and I think if we'd have focused on what our audience really wanted, which we'd had emails obviously saying, hey, you guys should do a mobile app, and obviously we wanted to, but we probably delayed it much longer than we should have done. We probably should have started it a long time ago. But that lesson learned, and I don't think we've lost out dramatically. I think in some ways we're probably building a better product today, a mobile product today, than we would have done had we built it 2 years ago, because I think the mobile space has evolved, and there's a lot more exciting things you can build upon and do.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for, you guys have spent a lot of time, like you said, building the audience first ahead of building the app, and there's just something to be said for, letting other people get some of the trial and error out of the way. I mean, you've taken on a little bit of funding, but for every business, no matter how they take on funding, like, cost is still extremely important to consider. And if you guys went out and blew a bunch of money on, being an early adopter of mobile platforms, you wouldn't be able to take on the advice of seeing all the apps that have tried and failed, or tried and done well, and now you can leverage a lot of that success into your audience that you've spent your time building, which I think, like you said, it's not necessarily wrong. You spent your time doing other valuable things for the business, which is probably a great thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think what we've, as I was sort of explaining earlier, a lot of the apps out there, when you load them up, whether it's kind of Foursquare or Yelp or all those things, they just show you like lists of places, and it's literally like a tiny thumbnail of the venue, the name of it, how far away it is, and all those sort of things, and a rating, and it's not particularly inspirational, and it doesn't sort of, I think, pique your interest. So that's why we've gone a very visual route, and we show you one place at a time, because we want you, we've got fewer places, so we want you to consider them all and show them off in all their glory. So I think, that has helped us seeing what other people have done in the market, to then reach ourselves, because we haven't obviously raised as much money as Help's done, and they're a massive player. So we've got to be different, and we've got to innovate in a different way.
Cool. This was a lot of fun. I've learned a lot listening to you, hearing the story, and I can tell there's there's been a lot of good comments. One guy says, this guy has it nailed. He's learned trial and error and has all the right ideas. So I can tell we get comments like that in the chat that there's a ton of good advice that people are going to enjoy for months to come when we post the recap. I always end these with a pitch for Kickoff Labs. I'm also going to say you guys should definitely go check out their landing page and sign up if you're interested in finding great little places. So it's glpapp.com, and we'll post that in the chat as well. You saw the landing page, and you should definitely check it out. I'm curious, as a customer of Kickoff Labs, somebody who's been to a couple of our chats in the past, how would you define, our why and what we're helping you do?
Kickoff Labs. Okay. Let me think about this. I would say we understand how important it is to get your business off to the right start. And we think that the best way to do that is build up an engaged audience that are raving about your product. That's why we built a product that has viral loops inbuilt to really get people signed up even before it launches.
Cool. I appreciate the feedback. It's good to hear from somebody what message they take away, and there's elements of that we definitely talk about behind the scenes that I think we could do a better job as a company explaining to our customers. So go ahead, if you guys are interested, check out kickofflabs.com if you haven't already. We try and make it easy for you guys to, like Rossa said, get off to the right start, build an engaged audience from the start. We think we've got a lot of great tools to help you get there. We love doing these chats. Next Thursday, we're going to do another landing page review chat. So if you guys have landing pages, you can sign up at grow.kickofflabs.com/live, and we will be reviewing landing pages that get submitted. I want to thank Rossa Shanks for joining us today, sharing his story on the growth of a great little place.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and I know people are going to take away a lot of great stuff. So see you guys next week, and look forward to the recap with some extra goodies in it. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks.